Imagine living in a time that isn't entirely your own. More like an echo, maybe. An echo of a powerful, vanished past. This is the really paradoxical, sometimes haunting idea at the heart of our deep dive today. We're plunging into Svetlana Alexievich's monumental oral history, Secondhand Time.
And it's really not your typical political analysis, is it?
No, not at all. It's more like a mosaic. Really intimate, raw stories from ordinary people.
People who lived right through the collapse of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And everything that came after.
Exactly. And our goal here, really, is to pull out the most profound insights from these voices, to try and understand the deep trauma, the disillusionment.
And that huge identity crisis, right? When their whole world just evaporated.
Leaving them in what Alexievich calls secondhand time. It's such a powerful phrase.
It really is. It captures that feeling of being caught, doesn't it? Caught in the echoes.
Echoes of a past that still defines you, even when it's gone.
And you're struggling to adapt to this new reality that feels, well, frankly, foreign, maybe even hostile.
So this book, it's not just about history, like dates and events.
No, it's about the human cost, the cost when an empire collapses.
Yeah, revealing that really complex emotional landscape, hope mixed with despair.
As an entire way of life just crumble.
Leaving behind not just like economic problems, but this fundamental loss of self, a loss of who you are.
Which is maybe the deepest cut of all. #tag the rise and fall of Homo Sovieticus.
Okay, so let's unpack this idea that shaped, generations. Alexievich introduces this really unique concept, Homo Sovieticus.
Right, the Soviet person.
And it wasn't just about being a citizen, was it? She describes it as almost a new breed of human.
Yeah, meticulously forged over 70-plus years in what she calls a Marxist-Leninist laboratory.
So what did that actually mean for people? For their inner lives, how they thought, how they existed?
Well, what's really striking is just how deep it went, how profoundly this identity permeated everything. This new man or woman, they had this distinct identity, almost manufactured, you could say. Alexievich says they had our own lexicon, our own conceptions of good and evil, our heroes, our martyrs.
So way beyond just politics.
Oh, completely. It reshaped their whole worldview, their moral compass, everything. It even extended to something really fundamental like their relationship with death.
How did that work?
Well, often seeing it through this lens of collective sacrifice, martyrdom for the bigger idea.
Wow.
And Alexievich herself, she actually says, I am this person, which is pretty striking.
Yeah, that really shows how deep it went, even for someone chronicling its end.
Exactly. It was internalized. And she notes that even now, people from the former Soviet republics, they live in different countries, speak different languages.
But you can still spot them.
You couldn't mistake us for anyone else. We're easy to spot. That's what she says. It's more than just culture.
It's that lasting imprint, that collective memory.
Yeah, rooted in that shared communist consciousness, being neighbors in memory, she calls it. Imagine growing up in a land she describes as full of hatred and superstitions.
But also bound by this shared, often brutal history.
Right. The traumas of the Gulag and harrowing war, those left deep scars. And then think about things like collectivization.
Forcing peasants onto collective farms.
Huge suffering, famine, and dekulakization, the campaigns against the kulaks.
The mass deportations, too. Whole communities uprooted.
These weren't just history lessons. They were woven into life. They shaped who people were, their fears, their resilience.
Their whole understanding of their place in the world.
So that collective trauma became like a defining feature of Homo Sovieticus, a kind of phantom limb of history, always there.
It sounds like for so many people, the state really did become their entire cosmos.
Yeah. Blocking out everything else, even their own lives sometimes.
And they struggled almost desperately to just walk away from history.
Because history was their life. It wasn't separate. It was their essence, their collective destiny. And that's where the huge disconnect happens later. You contrast that deeply ideological life with the new reality after the collapse. Suddenly people just want to live their lives. They don't need some great idea.
So the focus shifts.
Massively. What used to be minor details, personal comfort, individual wants, money that becomes the big picture.
That's a huge swing.
It is. And Alexievich points out this telling psychological trait. At heart, we're built for war.
Built for war? How does she mean?
We were always either fighting or preparing to fight. We've never known anything else, hence our wartime psychology.
So not just literal war, but a constant state of struggle, mobilization.
Exactly. Even in civilian life. Drums, banners, collective purpose. It was all very militaristic in spirit. People got so used to it, some didn't even see it as servitude. Some, she says incredibly, even liked being slaves.
Like that.
Found a kind of comfort in the clear rules, the defined purpose, maybe.
Wow, that's hard to grasp.
And you hear these stories that really bring it home,
Okay.
like the father. He genuinely believed in communism after Gagarin went into space.
Because we're the first. We can do anything.
Right. For him, it was proof. Proof of this glorious future, despite all the harsh realities.
And then the students who were disappointed, they missed the revelation.
Yeah, feeling they missed out on the heroic, history-shaping events, wishing they could have been part of that grand struggle.
So the author, her aim is to get inside that, the domestic interior socialism.
Precisely. Focusing on a person's soul, because that's where everything really happens.
So we see how deep the idea went, not just politically, but emotionally, spiritually.
And when that grand story just vanished, poof.
People were left searching, trying to make sense of ordinary life without that framework.
Exactly. That collective ideology was like their compass. And suddenly, it was gone, leaving millions just adrift.
Okay, this next part gets really jarring and honestly quite heartbreaking. After perestroika, this period of reform, there was this huge impatience, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah. And almost naive optimism,
Yeah.
especially about the archives being unsealed.
People thought tomorrow freedom arrives. They believed the truth would set them free.
They really did. They thought uncovering the past would bring clarity, a fresh start.
But the shock,
The shock was immense, a massive psychological blow, because the history they uncovered, it wasn't glorious, just flawed. It was horrifying,
the scale of it.
almost incomprehensible. Learning about figures like Zinoviev calling to eliminate 90 million people. 90 million.
It's just staggering.
Or Lenin ordering the hanging of no fewer than 1,000 inveterate kulaks, a direct order for mass murder.
And Trotsky's comment about the famine.
Utterly dehumanizing. When I have your mothers eating their young, then you can tell me you're starving.
These are the architects of their utopia, revealed as
Monstrous, yeah. And this truth, it was so horrifying, so opposite to everything they'd been taught, that the book says many greeted the truth as an enemy, and freedom as well.
because freedom meant facing this unbearable past. That implicated their whole identity.
Exactly. It was too much to bear. There's a quote from a friend in the book that captures it perfectly.
What's that?
We don't know our own nation, but we will courageously take it upon ourselves to educate them. Soon we will learn the whole truth and be horrified.
Horrified at their own history.
At the scale of the atrocities committed in the name of their ideals, it was a deep existential trauma.
Not just facts, but confronting who they thought they were.
And finding this monstrous reflection instead, it triggered this profound collective PTSD. The foundations just crumbled.
And right after this, this psychological earthquake, bam, real capitalism arrives.
Just like that, suddenly the country's covered in banks and billboards.
And all this new stuff appears. Blue jeans, nice coats, lingerie, decent dishes.
Replacing the old gray, ascetic, wartime-looking Soviet goods. It must have been a sensory explosion.
Overwhelming, I bet.
Totally. At first, there was this almost childlike wonder. People literally stopped fainting at supermarkets.
Which says so much about what came before.
Absolutely. Everyone wanted to be happy, and they wanted it now. And money.
Money suddenly meant freedom.
It rapidly became synonymous with freedom, which is a huge shift in values. Freedom wasn't ideology anymore. It was buying stuff.
The ability to consume.
Right. And people embraced business so quickly. They forgot Lenin and Stalin almost overnight, many of them.
And that was seen as salvation.
By some, yeah. A way to escape the ideological battles, the bloodshed of the past, an escape into material wealth.
You hear stories about this demand.
Oh, yeah. The business owner shipping 1,000 cans of coffee, then 100 vacuum cleaners.
And they went just as quickly.
Gone. Immense pent-up demand. It wasn't just commerce. It was like feeding a starved population.
But it came at a cost.
A profound cost. There's that observation. Russian novels don't teach you how to become successful.
Meaning their cultural background didn't prepare them for this.
Exactly. All that deep existential literature suddenly seemed irrelevant in this aggressive new market. So people started selling off their books. Literally, they were disillusioned with the old intellectual pursuits.
Trading old values for instant gratification.
In many ways, yes, leaving this kind of moral and intellectual vacuum behind.
But this new freedom, this materialism, it wasn't clean, was it?
Far from it. As you said, the harsh reality hit. Real capitalism was here. With blood.
Murder's becoming a familiar sight.
Yeah.
People stop being shocked.
It wasn't the orderly Western capitalism they might have imagined. It was brutal, raw, often violent, kind of Wild West.
Which raises huge questions about morality, right? The erosion of it.
An incredibly important and disturbing point. Alexievich shows how people had grew up among victims and executioners. That reality had blurred the lines between peace and war in their minds. Life was cheap under the Soviets.
And that desensitization just continued. Or got worse.
It arguably intensified as the system fell apart. You see it in the language.
Prison camp slang.
Mm-hmm.
Used by politicians, businessmen.
Yeah, casually talking about rubbing someone out. You can just spit and rub someone out. It reflects this deep dehumanization.
Just a total disregard for life.
And the stories of betrayal, they're chilling. The neighbor Yuri informing for nothing.
Or beautiful Aunt Olga informing on her own family.
And yet people around them saw them as just a regular person, even a decent one.
Which leads to that horrifying conclusion.
There is no such thing as chemically pure evil. It's not cartoon villains. It's ordinary people in extreme situations making choices that just corrode empathy.
So it wasn't just a crime wave, it was deeper.
A fundamental shift in morality. Life had been cheap for so long. Survival often meant looking the other way, or worse.
And capitalism just amplified that. The violence, the brutality.
It seems so. Making that freedom feel more like a new kind of terror for many people. Tag the bittersweet taste of nostalgia and the identity divide.
It's such a complex picture, isn't it? So contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
After the collapse, you have many people yearning for the Soviet era, this real sense of loss.
Palpable, yeah.
But was it just politics? Just wanting the old system back? Or something deeper?
That's the key question. And mostly it seems it wasn't just, or even mainly, political. It was this profound, almost existential longing for, well, stability, security, a common purpose.
Things the Soviet system, despite everything, did provide for some.
For many, yes. It was a clear story, a predictable path, a sense of belonging to something big, even if it was oppressive.
And some people actually embraced the term Sovuk.
Yeah.
That derogatory label.
Yeah, reclaimed it with defiance, almost like a badge of honor. There's one speaker who talks proudly about her Soviet grandfather defending Moscow, her Soviet grandmother fighting partisans.
So for her, Sovuk meant heroism, sacrifice.
Exactly, tied to the nation's survival. And she hates people who want to portray their history as just a black hole. She won't let go of the familiar parts, even the tough ones.
And then there's the woman who just says, I was born in the USSR and I liked it there.
Right? Still regrets not joining the Komsomol, the youth league.
Which was a big deal back then.
A huge part of life, a path forward. For her, it feels like a lost chance to belong more fully.
And she says, I don't want to live in America. I want to live in the USSR.
That's a powerful emotional attachment to a vanished world. A coherence the new chaos couldn't offer.
But then you have the kids.
Right. The new generation telling their parents, don't try to scare us with your socialism, almost dismissive.
Showing that huge generational gap.
A painful divide, often, rejecting the past's hardships, looking towards new opportunities. So it's not simple nostalgia, it's complicated. Affection, resentment, different generations seeing it differently.
So what does this tangle of feelings mean for identity?
Oh.
Or the lack of it, that fractured sense of self.
Yeah.
The contrast she draws is so stark between those intimate, maybe cramped, but culturally rich Soviet kitchens.
The Khrushchevka kitchens, yeah. Incubators for discussion, dissent, real connection.
And the flashy, opulent, almost vulgar palaces of the new Russians.
It really hammers home the disconnect, the displacement.
Like shedding one skin and the new one just doesn't fit right.
Exactly. These new Russians who got rich quick, they're described with contempt. Gangsters, yachts, castles.
And gilded toilets.
Right. And the speaker notes, American suits don't fit them right. They sit crooked.
That's a powerful metaphor.
It really is. Suggests this superficial adoption of Western wealth symbols without the substance. A crude imitation.
And there's this sadness about losing the true elite, the intelligentsia.
Yeah, who used to be the moral guides. Now, many felt they were just serving the rich, chasing crumbs.
Turning a great nation into
nothing but peddlers and looters, focused on just grabbing stuff, not higher ideals. It's a bitter pill for those who believed in something more.
And that disillusionment fuels something else.
Yeah, a startling desire for authoritarianism. The observation that half of the country is waiting for a new Stalin.
That's shocking.
It reflects this deep need for order, for stability, an inability to cope with the chaotic, brutal freedom they got. It's a cry for someone, anyone, to impose control.
And the example of Chubais, the architect of the reforms.
Bragging about building capitalism in 3 years.
While others saw it as carving up the country.
With surgical precision, that perception of ruthlessness, of injustice, it fueled the alienation. It didn't feel like organic growth, it felt like theft.
Which brings us right to the core of the identity crisis in the book. The collapse didn't just change maps, it shattered a collective identity.
Leaving millions feeling like strangers in their own land, who they were, where they belonged, all fractured.
And the story of the woman from Baku really shows this.
Vividly, heart-wrenchingly. She remembers when everyone had the same nationality, we were all Soviet.
Ethnic differences didn't matter as much. Armenian wife, Azerbaijani husband.
Just ignored, absorbed into that bigger Soviet identity. But then came the Sumgate pogroms in '88.
Anti-Armenian riots.
Yeah.
Even before the final collapse.
Yeah, signaling the unraveling. Armenians brutally murdered. She gives horrifying details. Women stripped naked and thrown on the fire. Babies dug out with metal rods.
Unimaginable violence. The shared humanity just gone.
Exposing the raw ethnic hatreds the Soviet system had suppressed.
And then they flee to Moscow, thinking it's safe.
And it's another betrayal. They, fellow Soviets, former guests, suddenly become targets. Racial slurs like trikas, kaches.
Facing violence, discrimination.
She talks about seeing rental ads. We'll rent an apartment to a Slavic family. Others need not apply.
So their old identity Soviet is gone. And their new one makes them targets.
Exactly. Their nation, the Soviet Union, doesn't exist anymore. They're stateless, adrift in the ruins of their own country.
That feeling of being trapped between a past that's gone and a present that rejects you.
That's the agony of secondhand time.
As we get deeper into these stories, death really feels like a constant presence, doesn't it?
It really does. It haunts the book.
Not just as like a political outcome, but as something deeply personal, a reckoning, almost a character itself.
Yes, absolutely. Its presence is pervasive. And imbued with so much cultural and historical weight, the number of suicides mentioned is striking.
Right, from Marshal Akhmeyev's very political act.
When the party was dissolved, yeah. A statement that his life had lost meaning.
To the young poet Igor, with his early fascination with love and death.
It points to this deep-seated cultural thing, a cult of martyrdom and death, almost. The idea that art loves death, glorifying sacrifice.
Because many had never known anything else but war. Or preparing for it.
Exactly. Where life and death were always blurred. Akhmeyev's suicide. He simply doesn't fit into the new interior. He was Soviet, that and nothing else. His whole purpose vanished with the state.
And then there's that incredibly chilling account from the executioner.
Oh, that's, yeah, almost clinical. Describing killing people, the smell of blood like semen, how you have to get used to death, like killing a rabbit.
He talks about the physical toll. Doctors massaging their trigger fingers.
Yes. It shows the terrifying depth of that wartime psychology, how completely expendable human life became, just brutal normalization.
But then, in complete contrast.
Yeah, there's the man who found real happiness, not in wealth, not in freedom.
But in the simple bowl of soup. In a boiler room during his camp years.
Right. It's this incredible anecdote, suggesting that even amidst horror, dehumanization, the human spirit finds these moments of profound, simple joy. Resilience.
The small flame of humanity.
Persisting in the ashes, yeah.
So, amidst all this despair, this focus on death, these losses, there are still glimmers of hope, new kinds of resistance.
It's not entirely bleak, no. There are signs of adaptation, definitely. A yearning for something else.
That initial burst of enthusiasm for democracy.
Where people believed the word could change the world. Through newspapers, open discussion.
That faded.
It gave way to disillusionment, yeah. Words didn't magically fix things, but that didn't lead to complete apathy. Instead, activism moved from the hidden kitchen talks
out onto the streets,
into the public square. And you see this new generation of protesters emerging, a really diverse mix.
Including the wealthy, mink coats, and Mercedes.
Exactly. For them, money and comfort are simply not enough. They're the well-fed marching for something more. Dignity, justice, a real civic life.
Like the White Ring protests in Moscow in 2012.
A powerful example. People learning how to be a free person, actively trying to dredge the Sovietness out of myself by the bucketful.
A conscious effort to shed that past, overcome obedience.
Yeah, to build a new civic identity, individual agency.
But there's always the fear.
Always. That fragile hope is constantly shadowed by the real fear of consequences. Stories of beatings in police vans, sadistic jokes about mass graves,
Grim reminders of the past.
and how easily it could return. So there's this constant tension, desire for change versus the visceral fear of crackdown.
And that debate about how change happens,
Yeah.
revolution versus evolution.
Right. Radical upheaval or a slow, painstaking process of building and adapting, that question hangs over everything.
So finally, when these huge ideologies collapse, leaving this void, what does it mean to be an individual?
Yeah.
What's the burden on people raised to be part of a collective suddenly thrown back on themselves?
That's such a crucial question, and it brings up that profound, terrifying loneliness, that sense of abandonment you feel across society in the book. Taxi drivers, scholars, everyone, so many are still struggling almost physically to square their ingrained Sovietness with this chaotic, individualistic new world.
Like the engineer working in advertising now.
Yeah, who says loneliness is a kind of happiness in this new age.
Wow. That's a stark contrast to the old dream, the collective city of the sun.
Totally. That utopian ideal of harmony, common good, gone. Valuing solitude now feels like a defense mechanism because the collective failed them, left them exposed, isolated.
And the woman who has another baby, even though she feels too old.
As a way to confront death, maybe, recreate a lost connection, fill a void.
But even then, she's afraid.
Admits she's afraid of loving her the way I loved him, referring to someone lost from the Soviet past. It shows the trauma, the fear of vulnerability in this unpredictable new world.
And the other woman having to scrub away my Soviet mentality, dredging it out by the bucketful.
It illustrates the sheer effort involved. Conscious, painful, exhausting work to shed the past, build a new individual self in this secondhand time.
The individual, once part of the collective, now carries the whole weight.
The full, terrifying weight of finding meaning, finding purpose, all alone, struggling to find their own authentic present.
So, Svetlana Alexievich, through these incredibly powerful, unfiltered voices, she's given us this unparalleled deep dive.
Absolutely, into the human cost when an empire collapses.
It's this tapestry, isn't it? Trauma, disillusionment, this ongoing identity crisis.
But also resilience.
Yeah.
That endless, often painful search for meaning, even when everything changes.
And the core message really is about secondhand time, that idea of being caught in the echoes of a past that's gone but still shapes you.
Yeah, struggling to adapt to a present that just doesn't quite fit, always looking back.
It really lays bare those complex emotions. Hope and despair tangled together as a whole way of life just crumbles.
Leaving behind not just the economic mess, but that fundamental loss of self.
And that longing for the past, even with all its flaws, versus the difficult, maybe brutal freedoms of the present.
It leaves people feeling adrift, doesn't it? Unmoored from the old anchors.
Because the collapse wasn't just political. It shattered those collective identities.
Forcing individuals to navigate this alien, sometimes hostile new world, making their own lives feel like just reflections of a vanished story.
Which makes you think, as we live through our own times with so much rapid change, information overload, how much of our present is actually new and how much is just secondhand.
Echoes of past beliefs, past traumas, past dreams that still kind of dictate things.
Exactly. How do we even tell the difference between living our own time, forging our own path?
And living in secondhand time, just reacting to old narratives that maybe don't serve us anymore.
What old stories, what inherited burdens, what assumptions are we still unknowingly living by?
And what does it really take, to identify them and then break free?
To step into an authentic, self-defined present.
That's the big question, isn't it? A really provocative thought to leave people with.